Casey Gray here from The Conscious Builder, and today we are talking about ice damming, and we have a lot of ice damming going on here. So what is ice damming? Ice damming is simply the ice that builds up on the eave of a roof, the edge of the roof. Quite a few things can cause ice damming, but one of the big culprits here in where we are in Ottawa is we have an interesting winter. So we have lots of snow, it gets warm, rains, it gets cold, freezes, so that melting snow can cause ice to build up at the edge of your roof and build up. But things like that, that's weather related. We can't really control some of that stuff. What we can control is how the house is built. If it's an older home, there's things that we need to do after that fact. But what happens in some of these homes that either are older or even today's homes that aren't built properly, which hopefully this isn't happening anymore, but where you have a wall and a roof meet, that space between the top of the wall and the top of the roof, if it's not large enough, there can be some potential issues there. And what happens is you lose that heat. So if that heat is leaving the house, and whether it's a combination of air sealing and not enough insulation or one or the other, that heat starts to melt the snow on the roof. And as that snow melts, it turns to ice and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And then that ice can eventually get underneath the shingles and then start to melt with more heat loss, and then it starts to drip into your house. So ice damming can become an issue if things aren't done properly. So what can we do to prevent that? So there is a product called Ice and Water Shield. Every roofer should know about this. And they usually put it, the first, 2 or 3 rows of your roll of Ice and Water Shield. They roll it out. They put 2 or 3 rolls up the edge of your roof. Ideally, cover the whole roof. It's a cheap insurance policy. If you have any ice damming, whether it's because it's an older house, whether it's because things aren't built properly, or maybe it's just the winter and things are happening with the climate that are different. We can't really predict what's going on anymore. It doesn't matter. You can have that cheap insurance policy by putting that Ice and Water Shield up your entire roof. And if water gets in behind it, if there's some other sort of leakage, whatever it may happen, it's your second layer beyond your shingles, your steel roof, whatever you decide to put on your roof. So another thing you want to consider is really heat loss through your entire attic space. So if you're putting pot lights, if you're doing a renovation, for example, and you're putting pot lights on the second floor, if you live in a bungalow and you're putting pot lights throughout your kitchen, if you're penetrating that air barrier, every single one of those holes, whether it's a light or a pot light, we all love pot lights. We put lots of pot lights in the kitchens that we renovate. Those are all weak points. Those are all points where warm air is going to rise. It's going to want to leave. It's going to escape through those pot lights, through the electro fixtures, whatever it may be, and get into your attic. And the more heat you have leaving your attic, the more possibility of potential ice damming, because the snow is going to melt on your roof, assuming you live somewhere where there is snow. So be conscious of the detail of how your wall and your roof intersect, and also be conscious of the amount of insulation that you have and the air sealing you have in your attic space.